Hey everyone, welcome back to Couch Critics. I'm your co-host Josh, as always alongside.
It's me, Dave. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good. I've been watching a lot of interesting movies lately.
Well, we have a pretty big interview coming up, and so I think you and I have both been.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Is that
Yes.
a picture of Garrett Graham behind you?
Yes, I got Garrett Graham, our kind of our show
Look
mascot.
at that. That's a lucky dog.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get a wall full of Garrett Graham stuff back here. And try
we love
you.
Garrett Graham.
We do love Garrett Graham. That's Phantom of the Paradise Garrett Graham too. I'll get a Parker Lewis Garrett Graham
and everything.
And a used cars Garrett Graham with him in a red car. But anyways, yeah, that's a pretty amazing. Good job on that. Go Garrett Graham. But yeah, we have a big guest coming up.
We have a huge. I think the guest we have coming up would be huge for even a big podcast. But
you mean a real podcast, right?
We're real talk.
Real. That's right. That's true. I have seen the business cards. So you're right.
We are lucky enough to have the amazing director Boaz Yaqeen coming on. Most people will know him as being the director of Fresh, Remember the Titans, Safe, Max.
He wrote The Punisher.
He wrote The Punisher. He wrote Now You See Me.
Yep.
Amazing director, great writer. And we get to talk to him.
But we're going to talk to him here in a minute. But he has a couple of movies out recently that Aviva, which you and I both recently watched. I've watched it a couple of times now. I absolutely love it so much that I recommend everybody buy the DVD. It is free on Tubi, but it's the kind of movie that you want to follow. There's a lot of nudity and a lot of beautiful sex in it, but that's not the leading factor. It's a wonderfully done movie with fantastic music. And then Once Again, which came out last year, also that he's made. They're very, I don't want to say art house because they're not. They're beautifully done.
No, but they are definitely movies that do not follow typical film rules.
Yeah,
and they kind of they follow their own format and they do their own thing. But if you just sit down and give it a try, I think there's a lot to be gained emotionally from both of them.
Yeah, and more than once. I watched Once Again on a second viewing.
For the very first time.
Yeah, Once Again for the very... That's why I think the title is Once Again for the very first time, because you really should watch it twice.
And that's repeated throughout the movie.
Yep.
The Once Again.
Yep. That's
as a psychopath.
Beautiful movie. And then Aviva, which I... watched multiple times and bought on DVD because it's now Mel my wife's favorite movie. I got them both digitally. Thank you, Fandango, for being Fandango at home. Just being cool. I purchased them. I'm curious to talk to him. The trajectory of his career from. I mean, he wrote an early Punisher movie in 1999 with Dolph Lundgren. Anybody who watched Ivan Drago from Rocky IV is familiar with him. Also, Masters of the Universe, which I don't. If you watch Masters of the Universe in the 80s, I'm really sorry about that. I don't know if you can get your money back. It was really cheap.
Chances are, if you watch Masters of the Universe in the 80s, you did watch Punisher in the 80s.
That's true.
They're the same.
It's our generation, really. Because
it is.
I might have been I don't know when that came out, but it's terrible movie. But I digress. But to go from that to like this auteur status of Aviva and Once Again and these beautiful, fantastic projects and stuff, with a stop along the way and some larger budget films like Remember the Titans and he did that movie Max. You see that movie Max about the dog
bringing the dog whose handler, whatever, Marine dies and taking him back home,
like a service dog in the military. A really pretty fun movie about loyalty and love and trust and all that stuff. It's a family movie, so it's easy to sit down and watch with pretty much anybody. I bet your grandma would like it, and so will your kids.
Yes, and then I did go back. So I had seen he has a movie that he did right before Aviva, just a couple years before, called Boarding School.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I didn't watch it.
He had done it a couple of years before, and I had watched it back when, and thought it was fine. It wasn't like my favorite movie or anything, but revisiting it just this morning, after having seen Aviva and having seen Once Again, this movie, Boarding School, takes on a completely different kind of meaning because
Really?
it deals with a young boy, 12-ish years old, dealing with these feelings. Like, he's gotten this attachment to his recently deceased grandmother. He starts wearing her dress, so it starts dealing with these feelings, masculine versus feminine, in sort of a quasi horror mystery kind of way.
That leads into these newer movies. That's obviously a direction he's taking his art form. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So if you just watch Boarding School in a bubble, I could see why, if you had watched Max or Remember the Titans, this would seem like an odd movie. But if you watch it understanding where he goes next, I think that's where Boarding School has its most power. It's still dealing with children, so there is some kids speak. So it's a little bit, so the language is kids talking to each other. So things like, I don't like the R word for disabled is
regular,
regular.
Rancid. What's the R word? I'm just kidding. Don't say it.
I'm not gonna, I wouldn't, but that word is
just
say
unitard, man. Unitard, like a singlet.
It is like a singlet. Exactly. They say singlet with a hard R.
The hard U. Anyways, go ahead.
But no, that word is used, but it makes sense in the context of the movie because it is 12, 13-year-old kids, and that's the way they talk to each other. So I definitely recommend, after watching Aviva once again, then revisit Boarding School, because it's got some deeper meanings that I think are missed if you watch it in a bubble.
Yeah, I'm curious. He's a fascinating guy. Beautiful career. Done some amazing stuff. He seems passionate about the stuff that he's doing, but
I think
yet understands the industry well enough to
knows his stuff. He's definitely a New York guy. If you watch Aviva and Once Again, he's very much a New York guy.
Yeah, he knows the area. So, it's almost like he was filming where he grew up. Right. It's to be fair, he might be one of the more well-known or more established of the film creators that we're getting a chance to talk to. So we're very lucky. Eric Miller, a previous guest and a friend of the show, was fortunate enough to help us bridge that bridge that for us. So thank you.
Shout out to Eric Miller. And again, to bring up Eric Miller, if you are a reader and you love books out there in the listener land, pick up Eric Miller's book, Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed. It's funny, it's scary, it's all the fun stuff that we like. If you are a fan of things like a Monster Squad, Night of the Creeps, definitely check out that book. It's definitely right up your alley.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We had a good conversation with him too.
If you can't tell out there in the world, we are a little bit nervous. This is the biggest guest we've had. We're super excited.
Yep. So I mean, I'm honored to get a few minutes of his time.
Absolutely, and
I hope he enjoys it.
I feel like this before every guest, no matter who they are.
Correct. Same.
I never want to feel like I am holding them back. I want them to feel comfortable and all that. But this is next level. So this is a big time for us.
Yeah, I'm excited for it and nervous at the same time. But he seems like an awesome guy. I can't wait.
He does.
We should probably get to it. I think.
So let's.
My nerves aren't going to let me hold off any longer. Let's do this thing.
100%. So we'll take a short break and we'll invite in Boaz Yaqeen. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Couch Critics, the show where Dave and I dig deep into the minds behind the movies we love, and sometimes the ones that leave us scratching our heads. Today, we are joined by a filmmaker whose career has been anything but predictable, and I mean that in the best possible way. Boaz Yaqeen is a writer, director, and producer whose work has defied easy categorization for over 3 decades. He burst onto the scene in 1994 with his debut feature, Fresh, a gripping, deeply human story about a 12-year-old chess prodigy navigating the dangerous streets of New York. That film earned him the Filmmakers Trophy at Sundance, instantly establishing him as a powerful new voice in American cinema. Since then, he has written, directed, and produced across genres, sports dramas like Remember the Titans, horror, action thrillers, even some graphic novels, always bringing a personal, emotional core to his work. But in recent years, his filmmaking has turned inward and experimental, creating some of the most intimate, daring work of his career. In 2020, he released Aviva, a bold, gender-fluid love story told through dance, blending narrative cinema with breathtaking choreography to explore the shifting identities within a relationship. Then, in the last year, he followed it up with Once Again for the very first time, a raw poetic meditation on love, grief, and human connection that's as much performance art as it is film. Both works push the boundaries of what cinema can be, refusing to fit into neat little boxes. Today, we'll talk about his journey from fresh to his most recent, deeply personal projects, themes that have carried throughout his work, the risks he's taken along the way, and why sometimes breaking all the rules is the only way to tell the truth. Boaz, welcome to Couch Critics.
Hey, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Dave, and I appreciate the intro.
Yeah. Well, how was that bio? Does that seem pretty accurate? That's pretty good at these things.
Pretty accurate. Fair enough. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Personally, I think you said 94, but that's your first directing effort. But you wrote The Punisher, right?
You did Punisher before that, right?
I did. I don't remember what year that was, but I came to LA in like 1986, I think.
Right.
And I had actually optioned a screenplay that was kind of loosely based on The Punisher, on a story I had told my brother, but I had to change the title and everything because, I didn't have the rights to it ever. Yeah. And I came in writing that kind of action-y stuff, and then a few years later, I don't remember what year it was, maybe 88, 89, but I pitched The Punisher, and that was that was probably the first produced screenplay that I wrote.
Okay.
I had written a couple other things, but that was the first produced screenplay.
Did you spend much time on the set with that one?
None at all. None at all. And in fact, at the time, I was so contrary and so unhappy with some of the things that they were doing with it that like I kind of got booted off the screenplay, and it's not my finished screenplay.
What do you think of Dolph Lundgren?
And also, I think that like that's the wackiest movie. Like I know that it has a fan base, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And in fact, I think of all the Punisher movie or whatever, it has the most vibe. Like it definitely has the most vibe,
Right.
But like it is hilarious when there's like scenes in it where like we're going to Coney Island and they have like palm trees and stuff. And it's like I think they
lack of detail.
Australia or New Zealand or something. And you're like, I don't know what planet this movie.
They're just filming in Toronto, and you're like, that is not Coney Island, right?
Was that Jackie Chan film? Was that Jackie Chan? Rumble in the Bronx.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
and they're like taking hovercrafts over like Vancouver, and you're like, I don't know what's even happening.
Right.
So Punisher's a little like that,
What do you think? I didn't picture. I saw it when I was younger.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that when it came out. But like, I was
probably about that old when I wrote it.
I was a big Punisher comics fan, Punisher and the Punisher War Journal and stuff like that. Those are one of the things I would follow. And I was always upset about Dolph Lundgren because I never pictured him as the Frank Castle character. You don't have to say, but I can't imagine that was who you pictured when you were writing it or putting your time into it.
No, I mean, it was wacky, but I mean, again, in retrospect, I mean, look, the Punishers that influenced me at the time, I was quite young. I was probably 22 when I wrote that. Frank Miller had really revived Daredevil, and he had put the Punisher in the Daredevil comics, and that's what had kind of given the Punisher a new life, right? And then I can't remember the name of the writer, but a really terrific artist called Mike Zeck illustrated a Punisher special graphic, like they did a limited series that kind of went off the rails, but the first issue was amazing. And the Punisher was getting a real revival over there at Marvel, really thanks to Frank Miller. At the time, anything he touched was sort of becoming revitalized, and so that's what influenced the Punisher that I wrote.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, it was wacky. Dolph Lundgren, the blonde guy, and that. But you know what? Again, to me, he's still the only guy that vibed Punisher to me. I mean,
that's true.
Like that John Barenthal is like it really.
Right.
Superior actor in every way,
if it didn't fit.
But
he's
he doesn't
like
scream.
5'7". I mean,
that's not.
You're like, why is he the Punisher? Like he's just mean and he shoots at people. Like I don't know. Like So, I mean, in retrospect, you kind of have to hand it to Dolph, as he's still the only guy that vibed Punisher out of all the guys they cast, you know?
That's true. It's been quite a few years since I watched it, but it definitely was a little unhappy as a kid. But
it's easy, but
it was he was all about the cartoon character, though, because if Masters of the Universe and then that
well, because he's such a big,
because he's a giant human being.
That was his time at that moment. Is that why? Because Fresh, I watched Fresh in 95, 96, somewhere around when it came out. Like, I loved it. I was playing chess a lot with my friends, anyways. It was just fantastic. And then I didn't really notice till I rewatched it very recently, because now that I have looked at your bio and saw that you wrote The Punisher, is that why you put that in the beginning of the movie? You have the kids talking about the Punisher with Dolph Lundgren.
A little riff. Riff.
That's hilarious. It's absolutely. I mean, it's the funniest joke that I've seen in a long time, but I didn't get it before until now. I've basically gone through your stuff. I was curious.
That's funny. So starting with Fresh, though, so it won that Filmmakers Trophy at Sundance. It still resonates today. I know Dave and his wife just watched it this morning or last night. My brother and I used to watch it all the time growing up. I think it was the first movie my brother ever watched, or that he ever bought, excuse me. So looking back, did making that film shape your future storytelling? Like, how did that affect your trajectory, as it were? Because Dave and I were talking about it. There's a through line between like an Aviva and Once Again with Fresh, because they're all stories about movement and how movement, like the story is about moving and getting around. Was that something that was in your arc, I guess?
It's hard to know, because I mean, it is really a weird thing to talk about both who you were, just who you were and where things came from so long ago. I mean, that's like 30 years ago, right?
That's true. Something. That's true, yeah.
Like, and it's like, do I even have any of the same cells in my body that I had when I was 30 years old, So it's interesting. I mean, sometimes you look at it like unlike some of the, like Fresh, because it was such a carefully planned movie, and it was my first, and when I watch it, I can almost literally remember why I was putting the camera in every shot and all that kind of stuff. But it's still, in terms of who I was as a person, so long ago.
Yeah, sure.
And also, I'm sure every filmmaker, every human being does. I've gone through a lot of changes in terms of what my interests are and how, I approach.
Mm-hmm. We all grow.
When I started out, look, I come from a very, very artistically orientated background. Like, my parents were mimes.
Did they study with Marcel Marceau? Is that accurate? That's what
they met in Marcel Marceau's school in Paris in the 50s. Wow. That my mom was dating Marceau when my dad met her,
Wow.
And they really, their real background was from this guy called Etienne Decroux, who was sort of like the father of modern mime. They met in Paris in the 50s. And when I was a little kid, my father was already teaching movement at Juilliard.
Mm-hmm.
They had a mime company. My father was directing, which really affected my creative life, a off-Broadway show called Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris, which was a kind of a review show of the songs of the great Belgian-French songwriter Jacques Brel. And it all dealt with movement. My father was a master of movement and using movement in theater, right? Like, not dance, by the way, but movement. And that was his whole thing. And I grew up with that. But then, you explore your own things. And when I was a teenager in the 80s, like, action movies was a big thing. And it was sort of what was kind of coming on, and that's how I broke in. I wrote an action screenplay.
Sure.
And I was like 19 years old, and I moved to LA, and I was like writing action-y things, and a couple of things I developed for Stallone, and it didn't quite happen, whatever.
Right.
But then, interestingly enough, my younger brother was a brilliant graphic artist and all that, and he was kind of like, look, man, and this is great that you're doing all this, but is this all you want out of life? And we had fights about it, because I was like, you're not doing anything with your life. You're criticizing myself.
You're telling me what to
do, and I'm making money writing action films and hot. But the thing that really changed my life, really, alongside my dear brother, was I picked up when I was like 23 years old or something, picked up a copy of Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer. And it basically completely shifted my perspective on what to expect in life, in art, as a human being. It made me feel like what I was doing was so reductive. Literally at 23 years old, my friend Scotty and I sold a screenplay to Clint Eastwood called The Rookie that Clint Eastwood ended up making with Charlie Sheen.
Yep.
That was like my first really big movie with my own, with a credit with Scotty. And we made a lot of money at the time, you know, for what it was. And at that moment, I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Quitting the movie business and moving to Paris and trying to become a novelist.
Yeah.
And I left. I did leave for a year and a half, and really changed my creative intentions. And in a lot of ways, ever since then, my quote unquote career has been very bifurcated and challenging for me, because the kind of films that I want to make versus the kind of films that I end up making are very far apart. Like some people, you know, God bless them, the really talented ones who have a perspective that works creatively and personally and financially,
right?
You know, like their talent like allows for that to happen. And there's a handful of those people, you know, the Wes Anderson and the P.T. Anderson and Quentin,
the Coens
and the Coen brothers especially, right? But there are not many people whose combination of talent and desire to do things that are both, you know, that are also commercial in their own way can do that. And anyway, when I kind of finished my time in France, my dear friend Lawrence, whose house I'm in now, whose awards you see behind me, those are not mine. Right? He had just produced Reservoir Dogs with Quentin, and he was like, Boaz, if you write something that we can make for a low enough budget, I think I can get this made. And I was like 27 at the time, and I had kind of given up on this idea of being a filmmaker or whatever. And Lawrence was the one that pulled me back in.
Like Godfather.
He pulled me back in, and I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I don't know, I pulled together this, it took me quite a while. I did a lot of research, and I had something else that I wanted to do, interestingly enough, this thing called Flying, but I knew it was too ambitious to get made right away as a first film. So I wrote Fresh, thinking it was more contained and more controllable. Achievable. It was still very difficult to put together. But Lawrence ended up getting the financing from a French company. No American company would finance it. But that was sort of like the golden age for the indie, you know? At the time.
It really was,
Especially 92 to 94, 95.
The mid-90s, it was like, they'd be like, oh, here's a low-budget movie with no stars, $3 million.
Go do it.
Like today, if you want to try and raise $250,000, they're like, who's in it?
Right. I need a name.
And you're like, fuck, 200, what the fuck are you
who am I
thinking?
Like,
you know, so it was a different time. It was a different time. And, you know, I really, when you talk about did Fresh lead me, you know, Fresh was something that I did almost as like a practice film for me. Like
that's that's a really good practice film, by the way.
Well, and I'm not minimizing.
No, absolutely not.
In the sense that I had this more ambitious film called Flying, about like a whole group of homeless kids living in New York City. It had surrealistic elements. It was very influenced by Ralph Bakshi, who's one of my all-time biggest
Fire and Ice Ralph Bakshi.
Ultimately, yes,
but same guy.
Heavy Traffic. Coonskin. And Hey Good Looking and Fritz the Cat, Ralph Bakshi.
Okay, all right.
Like the great Ralph Bakshi, who in his own way was as great a New York filmmaker as Martin Scorsese in his day.
Sure.
Before he started trying to make money on his, you know, like his career went in a direction that I mean, if you guys have never seen Heavy Traffic and Coonskin.
I've seen Coonskin. I haven't seen
those two films are just like stone classics of challenging filmmaking, you know? And I had this live action, but very Bakshi-esque movie I wanted to do. And I knew that there were elements in Fresh that were things that I wanted to bring to that. And then that movie never got made. And like a certain character from that ended up pulling a character from that and making A Price Above Rubies just about her. And I have to say that when I made Rubies, I was very tight. Like I felt actually way more free when I made Fresh. Like I was more, and I'd been a little traumatized by making it. Like I didn't enjoy. It was very hard. I didn't enjoy. And then the other one didn't get made, so I was very tight. And I feel like as much as I think Rubies has good things in it and meant a lot to certain people, which felt good, it was a tight film in a way. And then I couldn't get work again, and repeatedly Jerry Bruckheimer's company came to me with this Remember the Titans, which was like the furthest thing in the world from what I wanted to do in my life. You know,
I would imagine.
And well, interesting, you know, that was a turning point for me, one of those turning points you have in your life, because, you know, today when I make films like Aviva and stuff, they're always like, what a weird thing for the guy who made Remember the Titans. You're
it just goes on the resume, right?
You're forever defined by the biggest movies you make, right? As opposed to people understanding, no, Remember the Titans is a really weird fucking movie for me.
That's the Uptown Girls outlier, and Remember the Titans are the outlier.
You know, anyway, I knew there was part of me that knew if I was going to make that movie that things were going to change in a weird way for me. And yet I really needed to make a movie. And I did it. And I made Titans. I worked super hard on it in a way that I've never worked on anything before.
It's very good. It's really a good movie. You know.
Thank you. And now I'm able to embrace it. But at the time, afterwards, when it became so successful, there was a part of me that really resented and feared it, because I realized that what happened was I became defined by the thing that was the least me possible. And instead of taking other movies like it, and, you know, also when you're younger, you think this is never going to go away. You know what I mean? And,
This is forever.
I ended up passing on just about everything that could have kept me in that direction, and trying to focus on, you know, for lack of a better term, more personal, less commercial necessarily, more challenging, more personal work. And those things are very difficult to do, you know. And I mean, literally the last 3 films I made, I financed myself with my life. I don't have some big giant house and retirement because I spend all my money making these movies.
They're passion projects, though.
If you want to call them that, it's just, you know, I've done that now and I've financed documentaries that my ex-wife, who's my best friend, who's now a very successful filmmaker, made, and my own work. And like, it's just, I was finding no one was giving you funding to do for whatever funding to do these very outside the box things. And till this day, I have to keep trying to do more mainstream things when I can. In order to finance these. And it's challenging because the more you do these, the more they're not interested in you for the mainstream work.
Is that where something like a Now You
want them to remember the
then?
Titans? Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Is that where the writing of a Now You See Me comes from then? You take a writing job, or?
Well, Now You See Me, my dear friend, who I was a mentor to for a while, Ed Reichort, basically I had made I'd spent my entire life savings from 20 years of filmmaking on a very painful personal film called Death and Love, which is an extremely challenging nihilistic film. I'm nowhere near that state of mind now as I was then. I find it I can't watch that film just because it comes from such a
dark place, hard place.
Hard, painful, emotional place. I was in the depths of probably the deepest depression I've ever been. And I did feel like if I didn't do something that reflected that, I was never going to be able to work anymore. And no one was willing to finance it because it was so dark. And I was like, fuck it. I've saved up enough money and I'm going to make this movie with that money, you know? And after I wrote it, I mean, not after I wrote it, after I made it and it showed at Sundance stuff and all that, my friend Ed who was much more commercially minded than me, had this idea that he kept trying to get me to write with him. He called it Poof and said it was about a bunch of magicians who rob a bank, right? And I was like, are you kidding me? That's the dumbest idea.
A heist movie?
No, but the way he said it was a magicians who rob a bank. So I was picturing more like, Harry Potter kind of.
Oh, God, yeah.
Magician,
Yeah.
And I was like,
so it's not a bad idea. We can write that too.
Ed, don't bother me. Anyway, after I made Death and Love, and I was like, I don't even know how to do this commercial shit anymore. Ed was like, look, don't laugh. I wrote the first 10, 15 pages of the Magician movie. Just read it, right? And I read the first 10, 15 pages of Ed's script, which, by the way, is almost exactly the first 10, 15 pages of Now You See Me. Obviously, I've written a bunch, right? But I understood exactly what he was going for. And I went, Ed, I got it. This is great. How did they do it? And Ed was like, I don't know.
You tell me.
And he was like, you tell me. And I was like, oh,
that's why I only have 15 pages.
Yeah, all right. Okay. And I was like, let's do it. Let's write it. But that was Ed's concept.
Right.
Okay.
And we wrote it together.
Yeah.
And Ed, in a way, really pulled me out of a bit of a hole in the sense of like, I was in a space where I was just like, I don't even know how to think about this stuff.
Right.
And Ed was sort of like, come here, like, let's do this together. And it got me a little bit back on track of being able to think about how to do things that were a little bit more mainstream again. Because
helped you heal. It could have saved you a little bit.
Yeah, it did. So I'm always grateful to Ed for that.
And it also makes sense where such an emotionally, like emotional family movie like a Max, where that would come from out of this. Eventually,
well, a few years.
When you're happy, you can make a movie like that.
Well, I mean, I made an action movie with Jason Statham attached to, that was kind of like after I wrote Now You See Me with Ed, I was like, can I write one of these like Punisher type 90s movies? And like I wrote it in like 3 weeks. I wrote it literally in like 3 weeks, and a few people like Lawrence wanted to do it and went out with it, and Statham got attached, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll do this, But Max also was like, sometimes, the more commercial things, a lot of times is my friends pulling me into stuff. Because my friend Sheldon, who I had been friends with for a long time, and he had worked with Van Damme on a lot of movies and stuff. And he had written Bloodsport and directed Double Impact and all that. And I edited Cyborg with them and all that stuff. But Sheldon loves dogs, right? And we were
Sheldon Lettich? Yeah.
Sheldon Lettich.
I am a huge Bloodsport, like that's my quote unquote guilty pleasure. I love early Van Damme, Bloodsport, Kickboxer, all that.
Early Van Damme was a big part of my young life. I spent a month and a half in Hong Kong writing Double Impact with Sheldon.
That's awesome.
Anyway, Sheldon loved dogs, and I was telling him I had this idea about a dog thing or whatever, and Sheldon was like, we got to do that. And Sheldon was, he's an ex-Marine. He was in Vietnam and all that. And Sheldon had this idea. He was like, there's these military working dogs and da-da-da. And, he kind of pulled me into it, and we wrote it together.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, when also I was in a little bit of one of those moments of like, oh, shit, I got to do something. The vice president of MGM was like, we really like this script, and we want you to direct it. And I had passed on it a year earlier. And then it came back around, and I was like, look, I think I know how to make this movie. Let's do it. But I always make the bigger or more commercial type films when I'm in a place of like, oh shit, I got to...
You don't seek them out necessarily. They got to find their way to you.
Well,
I got to do something. And now I'm, and again, it's tricky because the longer you don't do them, the more people forget that you can do them. If you put your mind to it, They want people whose passion it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, look, I can actually make a better film than someone who's passionate about this, by just being a professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that this is the movie business is one of these weird things, right? Where like Larry McMurtry, the writer, the great writer, a really great essay about it in this book he wrote, essays on the movie business called Film Flam, where he talked about how like in the movie business, everyone wants to think you're so passionate about everything, right? And as he said, you know, some of the worst work ever was made by people who are very, very passionate about what they did. And some of the best work ever was done by people who were just treating it as a professional and
right.
you know, and
it's the job. It's their job.
Doing that 9 to 5.
And it's a job, and they're going to do a good job because that's what they do.
Because they do good
right?
work. Yeah.
Because they do good work. But in Hollywood, when you take these meetings, you know, like you've got to do this whole fucking dog and pony show.
Sure,
you know,
right.
like they need a script written about some dog who saves a firehouse. You can't say, you know, look,
I care about that.
I got a new kid. I have to build a new wing for him, and you know, and I know how to do. I get what this can be, and you know, you have to be like, when I was 6, I had a dog, and it saved me from a fire, and ever since then, my dream has been to make a movie about a fire dog. You know,
the Apple TV show.
I'm so passionate about this material, and that's the dance you have to do for these motherfuckers.
Well, and that's like the studio on Apple TV, the whole thing where they have to act excited about a Kool-Aid Man movie. Like
how Seth Rogen and Edmund Goldberg show
has to act all excited that we're going to make a Kool-Aid Man movie, and that's how he gets his position. Like, I get that's crazy.
Not that I need this to get out there, but I think I saw that episode of the studio. I think I've seen one or two of them. I might have seen part of another one, but the part about the studio that's just like inaccurate, is that they humanize the executives.
He's a person. He's a person. Not people are feeling.
Like Seth Rogen and them, like how much they care about how sensitive they are. About
they actually
everything.
Love what they're doing,
and you're like, I have yet to meet.
I've never met that guy.
I've been in this business since I was 19. I'm 60, and I have yet to meet one motherfucker that remotely resembles any of these people.
I love it.
But as you said, it's people who are doing it for the passion, or people who are doing it because it's their job. But it's the other end in the executive level, I'm guessing.
They are passionate about a house in Brentwood and 2 cars and great vacations,
money and esteem.
That's what they're passionate about.
So you do the Hollywood movies, and now you're doing some really far more unconventional movies. What motivator, what kind of pushed you to finally step out and start making the films like Aviva and Once Again?
Look, you know, I mean, I don't know how to say it other than that you get to a certain point where you're like, I'm not going to be able to live if I don't make something that means something to me and that explores the medium in a way that's interesting and adventurous and, you know, creative. And I keep trying. You should see how many scripts I've written compared to how many movies I've made. That are challenging and challenge the form and do interesting things. None of them get made.
Right.
None of them. Only the ones I pay for myself.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And that could be a failing of mine as a talent, you know, or whatever. But for what, you know, but I'm not even saying that from a place of humility. I'm just saying, like, you know, it's increasingly difficult to get personal work done, especially personal work that's as challenging as something like Aviva or and you know, here's one thing that I'm proud of, okay? Because, you know, if you want to talk about a little bit of ego or something, it is that I feel that men especially become less adventurous as they get older. You know, I think that men, like women tend to, like, especially if they end up getting a divorce or whatever, women tend to flower when they're 40, like they're very, I mean, being very generalized here, but, you know, because of societal pressures to be a certain way or whatever, women tend to be like real focused on kind of making it work when they're younger. And then when they get older, they realize, what the fuck am I so stressed? Like they start flowering and opening up and being way more adventurous and exploratory. Men kind of get all that out of their system when they're in their 20s, go out, run around, do all
the
this.
Explore spirit goes away from everybody.
And then by like the time you're 40, you just want to be near a nice bathroom. You know what I mean? Like just whatever it is that I'm going to do, I just want to be near a nice bathroom. And it also happens creatively and emotion. Like they start wanting to do the thing that worked for them over and like, if that worked for me before, I'm going to try and do that again because it worked for me before. And for whatever reason, I'm kind of the opposite. And if something works for me once, I'm like, the last thing in the world I ever want to do is anything remotely like it ever again.
Yeah.
Like remember the Titans 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Not even remember the Titans 2, anything remotely related to sport.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and of course, when you make something as successful as that, what do they offer you afterwards?
More of that.
Every single one,
a lot of stuff like that, And, but I will say this, interestingly enough, like if you told me now, because of the kind of the amount of freedom that it has in it, I really do love movement. And, it is coming back to me from my youth and my childhood. And it's like, if I could just make experimental dance films for the rest of my life,
you would.
That's what I would do. Like, I mean, I'm about to hopefully this if everything comes together this winter, maybe make a drama, which is something that I kind of need to show people I can make a regular movie again.
Yeah.
But the idea of making a film where just people talk and no one just suddenly gets up and starts doing something weird, like I'm kind of like over it, and I'm going to do my best and I'm going to try and do a beautiful job. But if you told me I could just really explore, like really, really explore with narrative form, physical form, emotionally, like that's all I really want to do.
That shows with both Aviva and Once Again. It's not surprising because obviously just looking up on Wikipedia, we see the Marcel Marceau stuff about your parents, and it's fascinating to know how important movement was, and that all of that stuff seems to be a huge focus on your most current work, which I love it.
My ex Alma and I, who's my creative partner now in so many ventures, Alma Harel, we produced a movie about my dad, a documentary about my dad called Creating a Character.
Okay.
Which is like exec produced by, he taught just about everyone that you've ever seen in a movie at this point, and like, so it's exec produced by Jessica Chastain and Anthony Mackie, who speaks really beautifully in it, and Oscar Isaac's in it, and all these different people. And it's a real beautiful portrait of my dad's background and him and my mom and how they developed their craft and all that.
And influence people.
Yeah, and influence people. It's really lovely.
So talking about Aviva, there was when you had mentioned that you would rather talk about those things if it's not too much work, and it was never going to be, because like we said.
No, but by the way, I'm happy to talk about any movie that you want to talk about. I just did when I was saying I just wanted to make sure that was part of our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where I'm at now.
No, absolutely.
Like, that's what I'm doing now.
So, and I said, hey, Dave, he's willing to come on. He wants to talk to us. But we had already said when Eric mentioned this to us that he would reach out, and if it worked out, I'm like, I'll just watch all of his movies again. I did not get to watch Safe, Death and Love, or Uptown Girls. But I watched everything else at some point recently. When I watched Aviva, when it was over, like I was emotional. I immediately texted Dave. There is something it is so beautifully done. The idea, the gender fluidity, the idea of that both sides of that coin are in each one of us, and the way that the movement, and sometimes you're in a real world setting. On 1 minute she's running around like the empty warehouse space. Every bit of movement, every bit of sound. Like, I was so emotional. I was like, Dave, you have to watch this movie.
I watched it first. No, you watched it first, and I watched this. I watched it twice in a row.
You watched Once Again before I did.
Let me preface this by saying I watched it on Tubi because it was hard to find a place. And
sure,
my wife and I watched it late at night on a work night. We have 9 to 5 jobs, but we watched it late into the evening, and the commercials that were breaking it up were so distracting that I purchased the DVD, which we watched again last night, the second time, because it was hindering the emotional ride that I was being taken on. My wife loves the movie. It is now at this point one of her favorite films, and she's seen it twice in the last week and a half, something like
Amazing.
that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely
tell her
beautiful.
thank you.
And that's what I was getting. Like, how do you and this is just, I don't think there's an answer to this, but how do we get movies like Aviva, movies like Once Again, that can have a different meaning to every person, that are so emotionally driven and don't necessarily have to be a narrative A to B? How do we get those to be more accessible and more because I have never felt so much after a movie watching these two.
I mean, it's so challenging. There's no ecosystem for it now. You know, there's just no ecosystem for it unless a movie has something that is so quote unquote sexy in terms of like what people think they can do to publicize it and get it out there, and has a kind of a conversation starter thing or some start. It's so hard to break through. And what we thought, I mean, some of us optimistically hoped that with the advent of these streamers, that it would actually help independent films because they needed content and they had money,
distribution,
and quite the opposite happened. They're not interested in independent film. They have they want to get eyeballs based on the biggest, most obvious kind of things, and what they're then willing to pay for independents to pad things out, it's so minimal. And in theaters are so expensive, and that, like, even me, it's like, are you going to go see Marcy? What was that movie that started those guys' career? Like Marcy May Marlene.
Marcy May,
Like a lovely, interesting, striking little film, right? If you see that's playing and you're like, I'm going to go with my friend, it's going to be $25 each plus popcorn. It's $50. $60 to go see this indie in a theater. Are you going? I don't know. I'm not going.
Right.
I'm going. Fuck it. I'll wait till it comes to my good screen TV at home or whatever.
Or streams or something. Yeah.
So in theaters, it's very tough for independent film now, but also very tough. Like, I don't even care if people see these things in the theater, but to get them in front of people and to get their awareness on streamers, it's equally difficult.
Because it's the stupid algorithm based everything. Like, if I don't accidentally watch something that they rate as akin to this, it'll never come up on my radar.
No, and look, those films that you're talking about are movies that I paid for. And I'm not fucking Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. Like, I mean, I make more money when I do, like, Right And Now You See Me or whatever than your average Joe, and it's just enough to pay for one of these movies. Like, and it's like I'm literally taking that money from here and putting it here and keeping enough money to pay my mortgage and have a decent apartment in New York and be able to travel here and there, but like nowhere near being a millionaire, because I'm taking what could be that and putting it into these movies. And look, and that's what's always has been so challenging about the movie quote unquote business, is that it is a business. And unlike some art forms like literature or some painting or whatever, like, you need so much money to make a movie. Like a low budget movie, you go, okay, that was a tiny budget movie, $600,000, $650,000 is a minuscule movie. Right? I mean, I know a few people managed to squeak something out for $50,000.
That's more rare.
But to make a low budget movie, you're talking between $500,000 and $1 million. 700, 500, 450, 600. Those are tiny, impossible to make.
That's your shoestring,
and that's a lot of fucking money for an individual to try and cough up.
Absolutely.
Like Aviva, which was, I mean, what we managed to do in Aviva, my lovely producing friend Carlos, but I mean, Aviva is like, because it was completely non-union, non-SAG, non-everything, which who knows, I shouldn't advertise, but I mean, that's the only way to make something like that. It's all dancers who had never been in movies before. It's all you and just people that you bring on, going in the street, getting permits only where you need them, and going around, right? I managed to shoot that like 46 days, New York, Paris, LA.
Wow.
We were shooting on airplanes. Video equipment allows you to do, I was dragged kicking and screaming into the digital age a little bit, because it just looks so much worse than movie, than film and all that. But now I am on my knees grateful for it,
that it's
because
out there.
if you're making interesting work, the things you're capable of doing that you weren't able to do before, it's huge. It's like you're literally able to shoot stuff at 100th of the budget because of the domino effect that things have when you're making a movie, right? So, what I was able to do, how I was able to do Aviva, I had to write a bunch of Hollywood movies in order for that to be. And I don't have kids. I don't, and all that stuff. People who have to make a living and want to have a decent life,
they don't have that. They don't have that option that you just did. Yeah,
they don't have that option.
Yeah.
So not that many people are like John Cassavetes-ing,
right? I'll act in this movie so that I can then go and create
and make husbands or or faces or whatever. A few people do it.
Yeah,
but hardly any.
Not many.
Okay. And the other thing that sucks, and I don't want to go down the negative road because I'd rather stay positive, but the thing that sucks is, like, when you talk about the 90s, it was possible to build a career as an independent filmmaker and build a body of work. You could make an indie film and then make another one that's sort of like that, and another one, and keep it going, right? Like, now you basically scratch together everything you can. You make that one movie, it goes to Sundance, hopefully, if you're the luckiest 10 people in America or whatever. And if it gets any attention or whatever, the next thing that every one of these people are doing is like getting a job at Marvel or getting a job at or whatever. No one is making that second indie film. The second indie. I mean, I think maybe the guy Sean Baker who did Nora, right?
Yeah,
like
because he did like Florida Project.
Yeah, wild exception where he's made like 4 or 5 of these.
They're few and far between. They're trying to establish themselves in the large studio system. I would imagine
you get a Chloe Zhao who does a Nomadland and then Eternal.
You can't afford it. No one's giving you, like, if you make that first one that goes to Sundance for $1 million or whatever. No one's saying, "Hey, we'll make your next movie for 3.5 or 4 or 5." Like, it's either like go big or go home kind of thing. And it's so when you say, how can we make more of these? I don't know. I don't know. You have to have people who are literally ready to jump out the window like me, unless they were going to do something interesting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And are willing to basically go, fuck it. I don't care about money. I don't care about making
just
my money
make
back. This. I just need to make this thing.
Yeah.
Well, Aviva, and we'll get to Once Again also, but Aviva's it's you gifting humanity, and I know it sounds lofty, but it's a beautiful movie, and I don't know how. My wife and I talked about it last night. I'm not prudish or anything else, but I don't know how to recommend it to half my friends, half people I know. I'm like, I don't know how I recommend
this. There is a lot of because everybody's
it's not a beautiful movie.
Yeah, you just have to tell them it's a sex movie. I mean, Aviva is a movie about sex. It's about our
passion and vulnerability,
it's about sex. It's about our sexuality and who we are in sexual situations.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to make a movie about sex and trying to avoid sex. That's like American movies are so, and movies right, like it's like in our relationships. So much of our relationships hinge on our sexual dynamic. So you have people who get along well on an emotional, intellectual level, and then they get into the bedroom and it all goes wrong. The power balance, the dynamics just doesn't work, right? Or you have people who don't get along and in the bedroom, because of their particular power dynamics and this and that, it works. But we never see those scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't see that.
You never see those scenes. You never see the scene where like people are in the middle of having sex and it looks like it's going well, and then one person starts to kind of zone out and like it becomes abstract to them in the middle of fucking, and like you're like, wait, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
and
when
the
you
other person notices that the other person isn't there, and is like, wait, why aren't you looking at me? I'm right here.
That's the first scene.
I'm right here. What do you mean? Why?
No, you're looking at my shoulder.
You never have those things, and that's so much. You go through it. Everyone goes through these things, right? But somehow in American films, you're supposed to like do everything up until the moment where somebody gets into bed, and then you have a shot of their hands like this, and a shot of someone going up and down for a little bit, so that you get the, and then it's the next day, right?
Little Kenny G music plays, and
so I don't know. You know, to me, it was really important to show that aspect of life,
and I think
it's honest, it's vulnerable, it's beautiful.
And the fact that it, like you said, these are not professional actors, these are dancers. Something about a lot of the films that we watch, when you recognize an actor, they bring all the baggage of past roles. These characters were just this character to me. They didn't have any other, there was no links, synaptic processes in my head for these people. So they were just the person I was seeing on screen. So I was able, for me, to emotionally connect to each character differently
as real people,
because they weren't anybody else but this character to me.
Isn't that a delight? I mean, I saw a film recently that I really responded to, called "The Worst Person in the World." It's Danish, I believe, and it's about this woman who is very emotionally cut off, basically, right? And you know what? She never gets better. Like, spoiler alert.
Yeah, there is no growth.
It's not like it has a Hollywood ending. It's just in a way about her accepting on some level.
It's an honest ending because people don't really change like that.
Yeah, and she ultimately has to accept that this is her process and this is who she is, right? And it's very well done and all that. And it had no one I recognized in it.
Yeah.
So you're just able to completely invest in these characters as if they're people you're meeting, not as if they're actors that you're watching.
Right.
You know?
And I think that's my draw with a lot of foreign films is I don't know these performers, so I don't have any preconceived idea of who they are. So I get
like Parthenope, I just watched that. Sorrentino.
Yeah, Parthenope that you just watched.
Like I had no connection to any of them from any other people other than Gary Oldman, and so same deal. Like it's easy to connect that. I need to be enveloped in the story and to care about it. As soon as I'm taken out of it, I can lose the connection and kind of lose a little. I don't feel for it anymore. I don't care about it as much anymore. So that's
and it's a very different experience. You're just hyper aware that you're like in American films. You're just hyper aware that you're watching a movie, and you're like, is this good acting? Is this bad act? Oh, they're doing good acting. You're not just like, and I'm impressed. That's some good acting there. But like, you're not just kind of in this thing, and I don't know. And I do enjoy that a lot.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy that.
And that opening scene of Aviva, before we move on to Once Again, that opening scene.
I love that music, by the way. I love the music.
The music, yeah. But in Aviva, when she's sitting there on the bed and she basically tells us, I'm not an actress. I'm a dancer. Like she's open, she's vulnerable, and she explains to us everything that we need to know and expect so the rest of the movie. We're not bogged down with exposition or anything.
It was a very, very smart way to introduce the concept in my mind. I mean, I'm fairly dense. I don't pick up on subtext very easily, and so it was a very easy way to introduce me to the notions that I was about to see. It was smart, brilliantly done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I knew that I was doing something confusing, and even so, like when I introduced the male version of Aviva, without saying anything.
Yeah.
Later in the movie where he comes in the bathroom and suddenly just the guy is there. But I felt like, okay, but I set you up for that at the beginning, and now you have to catch
right.
up.
Yeah, do the work.
And by the way, a lot of people, not a lot, interestingly enough, like a movie that I thought was going to be the hardest and most, it was like probably my best reviewed movie in like years. What happened sadly to Aviva was what happened to a number of movies, which was it was supposed to premiere at South by Southwest after like struggling at a number of festivals. I mean, not getting it. It was going to premiere at South by in a really nice big premiere. And I was so happy. And COVID hit and South by got shut down like 2 weeks before the thing was supposed to premiere. And suddenly you've got this indie when COVID is literally starting.
Yeah.
Right.
And people are just watching The Tiger King on Netflix and
right.
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And
they
so
want comfort. They don't want to be challenged.
They don't want to be.
Just
got that movie and a lot of movies. I mean, every movie that was accepted to South by everything.
So Aviva, had it gone through that route, gone to South by and everything, would you have gone through and got it rated with the MPA?
No, that movie was always
going to be it still shows not rated, right? Like
yeah. And you know what's crazy? Like you can buy it on iTunes and stuff. Amazon, you can't even buy it on Amazon.
I know.
Because someone complained about content. And you're like
a bunch of flaccid penises and
you guys show The Boys where like people like go into a penis and explode it from the inside out, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, but some sex scenes is too much. And they show Blue is the Warmest Color on Amazon, which has way more explicit sex than Aviva does.
100%.
You know, and it's
I don't know who said it, but somebody famous, but you can only show a penis on screen if it leads to humor. Like you can sexualize women, but you can't. But the minute you sexualize a man or do it in a dramatic way, you can do it in a horrific way. You can have Piranha 3D where it chews on one, but you can't do it in a sexualized way. And I don't understand that double-edged side to
it. Well, we're in America, guys.
You're not wrong.
I think men still run Hollywood mostly,
That's
but
true.
I could be wrong.
America.
I just don't understand I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm just a fat white guy. What do I know? What do I know?
Same as me.
But so once again, for the very first time, similar in style because it's dance and it's movement and it's music to Aviva, but I think to me it seemed more stripped down. It was more intimate, and it was a lot darker. A lot darker.
Yeah, a lot darker.
This one,
the trauma in this
death and trauma and grief, equally beautiful. The performances are like those. The main characters are special. Well, through the different. I mean, the 20-something versions were just. I was so encapsulated and enraptured by their story, and then we were having a debate. What is the meaning of the staircase?
That's trauma, right? Like it's got to be.
One's leading up to the future and the other's leading back into the grief and trauma,
or down is her trauma. That's where there's right.
Down waiting for her is her abuse. Her trauma is the voice of her abuser and the voice of her trauma.
Yeah.
And ultimately she knows she has to go face it before she can be healthy in any kind of a relationship.
Yeah.
And that probably means that there's no future for them because she's never really faced that.
And she's not willing to.
Yeah.
Well, at the end she is.
True.
At the end she is, but who knows if she's ever coming out of it, you know? But once again, it's different. It did come out of a very traumatic relationship that I had. Very personal, very traumatic. Aviva was also incredibly personal. I mean, it's really my relationship with Alma. Basically, Alma was like, "Man, I can't believe you're putting this shit out there." But
she does. Okay. She is a videographer going to make music videos and things of that nature. Yeah, I guess.
She was incredibly generous. At first, she was like, "I don't want to know about this," and then she even helped with it. She was so amazing.
That's awesome.
But and it truly is. She is truly my best friend in the world. But once again, was a very painful, traumatic relationship that I put into and the difference between that and Aviva, is that Aviva, because it has that confusing 4 actors playing 2 people. The storyline is in a way it's just like boy meets girl, have trouble, and what happens, right? Like it's the story itself is incredibly simple, but I felt like I had to keep it very simple because of this confusing
the confusion was in the performers, not in the story.
And in what part of you is interacting in that particular scenario, right? Once Again is a much more surreal, non-linear, and poetic exercise, but it just has those two actors repeatedly going through what they're going through with
at
each
different
other.
ages.
So like you're saying, it's more intimate, more like monomaniacal. Like it's just like going down that same corridor.
The same hallway.
And the images of the blood when it starts pouring rain and the blood and it's just like it has such a visceral, real, tactile, lived feeling that you can't. I'm not a woman. I was never traumatized, but I understood somehow the trauma based on her bathing in the tub, her getting poured on the rain. Like those made sense to me, like on a, I don't know, lizard brain weird level. And that to me, those kind of things, that's what both Aviva and Once Again, these are movies that you don't just watch once. You have to watch it again because you're going to pick up so many.
Which is why I bought Aviva. I own them both. Actually, technically, I own them both now. But there's a vulnerability in both of them, which makes sense that they're coming out of relationships you had. That's what I just kept hearing in my head watching both of them. Is both of these situations, both of these films, is people afraid to be vulnerable or unwilling to be vulnerable, and trust and all those things. Like that's kind of the through line, which makes sense that so much is coming from your real experiences. I don't know.
Yeah, and hey, it's a way of exploring things. When you talk about being a guy and not going through those things, it's like I went through this very painful relationship with this woman who had been through this kind of abuse. And I was very angry at her for what we went through. I probably still am, and yet, as a creative person, once I started telling the story, it was incumbent on me to empathize and understand where she was coming from and what she went through to bring her to this place. And by the way, what I think is kind of interesting is that ultimately when you watch the film, you almost feel more for her than for him. In that sense, because sometimes I find as a writer or as a creative person, the thing that's the hardest work is the thing that comes across most to the reader or the audience or the viewer. Like if you're writing two characters and one of them's really close to you and you're like, oh, I know this character, and then there's a character you don't know as well and you're like working on it. Usually the audience is going to go, I love that character, and it's always the one that you didn't like, the one that you worked harder on, and the one that you thought was going to come across so easily, you didn't put in the same work to make that happen. But there are literally times when I was writing that and when I was making it where it's like, shit, you're being too empathetic to this fucking motherfucker, right? Like, like fucking bitch that you're being too empathetic toward. Fucker. And yet that, I think, as an artist, as a creative person, that's what you have to do. That's what and that is the catharsis. Like, do you come out of it more forgiving, happier? That not necessarily, but you've gone through that experience,
and I can imagine
empathy,
and I can
imagine
imagine
process.
It's how you process.
I am a novice writer. I have submitted some things I've never been published, but I write, and I can see how trying to get into the mind of that character can at least build that empathy, so that I'll never fully understand, but I can at least, we can move past something in that way. And I think that's where the emotion hit with me, because I felt like I was the guy. I was him. Like I've lived a lot of the stuff that he's dealing with, but then I see what she's going through, and then I'm like, oh, I couldn't imagine. Then I start to feel bad for her. So now I'm invested in her because
it's a way of filtering her motivations and the way that she is.
So I definitely get what you're saying when you're writing it. It's easy to write about myself. It's hard to get into someone else.
I'm the hero of every story I write. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
I know. I'm 100% the hero.
By the time when you're writing, even if you're writing the other character that you feel you identify with less, they do become you at a certain point.
Right? Yeah,
you are them. But with film, what's kind of neat about it, as opposed to, look, there's something amazing about writing novels or stories or whatever. But with film, it is at a certain point when if you actually make the film, because your script is a blueprint, right, for the
because they interpret it different than you wrote it, right? Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You released it to them, and then it's basically theirs.
Well, yeah, and I like that idea. You picked this performer because they read it in a way that you understood, and then you give it to them, and it becomes theirs. I gotta say, my favorite part, though, and once again, because it kind of caught me by surprise, when he goes out and he runs into the other gang of guys, and he's like, "So I heard you talking crap or whatever," and they start puffing up, and then all of a sudden, it's a break dance, like the dance battle. I was like, that for me, that was the coolest thing. I was like, that is so amazing, because it had all of the posturing and all the puffing, like it would be this big fight, and then it turns into a dance, and I really like
it had a little West Side Story, Robert Wise West Side Story. It just a little bit of that, but in a much cooler urban, fun to watch way, in my opinion.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That circle, that they have, the cipher and all that. That's a real thing. And rap battles is a real thing.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking about how to deal with these emotions that I was trying to figure out how to process, the idea of art as a battle, creativity as a battle, I was like, okay, how do I get there? And I realized I wanted to do it through dance battling and rap battling. And obviously that's very much an African-American idiom and cultural, even though there are, white people who do it or whatever, it is essentially an African-American form.
Yeah.
And so that dictated how Once Again was going to be made and what its actors and characters were going to be.
What kind of, so were you listening to a lot of rap and things as you wrote those, the battle rap?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes.
So what's your,
and in fact,
what's your go-to, who's your rap, who's your go-to rap artist?
I don't,
Do you have one?
like my rap, I was into rap more like in Public Enemy.
Yeah, same.
Eric B. and Rakim in the 80s and stuff.
Yeah, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s.
Rap kind of lost me when it became like gangster rap, and all that just kind of lost me a little bit. But I dip into it here and there, but my passion really was Public Enemy back in the day.
See, and I was a big NWA fan. Dave is a huge Wu-Tang fan.
NWA is what killed it.
Yeah, for you. I grew up in Southern California.
I didn't want to hear N-word pulling on the trigger, every 5 seconds.
I get that for sure.
Shooting other black kids,
but you can't go wrong with Eric B. and Rakim, and
but you go back to Curtis Blow and Grandmaster Flash and things like that, and that's where the spoken word element of rap battling, it seems like it's more akin to that than gangster rap or mumble rap or whatever these kids are doing today.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's all different.
But no, there are some remarkably dexterous and incredibly verbally
freestylers.
That of course I would listen to and enjoy. I mean, just a lot of people that have tremendous ability and skill. I mean, the guy from Outkast is
Andre.
What's it?
Andre 3000.
Andre 3000. Yeah, really incredible.
That's awesome. Those. But once again, Aviva, they're just so. I don't know. If I got nothing else out of this, like if you had emailed and canceled, I would still feel so lucky that those had got put on my radar.
Thank you.
Because
and it means, by the way, it means a lot to me to talk about these films because they're not that easy to find.
Yeah.
Once again, Aviva actually got out there a little bit more, like you're saying, it's on Tubi.
Yeah.
Once again, it's like hard to find, and it's hopefully going to get its way out there. But these are not films that people hear about,
exactly.
And I'm really thrilled that you guys had an emotional reaction to them and are talking about them with me. I appreciate it greatly. Yeah.
I don't buy DVDs, and I bought Aviva on DVD. Like I don't know the last DVD I bought, but now I know.
I do buy DVDs. I have this collector's mindset where I have to hoard everything. So
just say you're a hoarder, Bell.
DVDs is the safest thing for me to do that with.
Not Blu-rays?
Well, no, yes, Blu-ray. Like today I picked up Wolfman in 4K Steelbook. Like
wow.
I just like movies, and I like to tactile hold something in my hands, but
it's like a vinyl record album.
It is a little like I've been in, my brother got really into it, so I got into it. Like we've been watching some 70s TV lately, like shows that I never used to watch in the 70s. You know?
What are you watching?
Kojak.
Yeah.
Kojak,
amazing show, dude.
Yeah.
Like Kojak, what's so cool about Kojak is that it's really all shot on the streets of New York.
Yeah.
Like not like when you see Starsky and Hutch or whatever, and they're always in the back lot somewhere, or like
you see palm trees everywhere in Toronto, and
Kojak is like a big time New York show.
Yeah.
It's on the street in New York, and you know sometimes like Richard Donner directed a few of them super well, and like and like you know those days they would churn out 28 and 30 episodes a year. So obviously, like 10 of them are going to suck, but like 15 of them are going to be fucking awesome, you know? And then a few of them are going to be okay. But so like watching Kojak, the Rockford Files, stuff like that.
My wife and I will watch
Rockford Files.
Garner,
Jim Rockford,
he's great.
Like, he's the greatest. And I wanted my brother to check out some Rockford Files, and he only watches stuff on DVD and stuff. He doesn't stream.
Oh, okay.
And I got him this box set, and I kind of watched one of them, and it was not such. It was the quality sucked, you know. And then like I was like, oh, it's on Amazon, and I like streamed it on Amazon Prime, and it's beautiful. Like it looked amazing, and I felt so bad because my brother's like watching it on these very
VHS transferred to DVD versions.
Yeah, very
it's beta format backwards.
They're way better quality for the most part.
Wow.
You're like rats, rats. But that is the upside. You know?
70s put out some really good television. I think a lot of the stuff in the 80s kind of started tanking television, for in my opinion. But film wise, also, what's your film period of time? What's your favorite? You watch classic films, I have to assume, if you're a fan. What are you looking?
Well, I mean,
towards?
I grew up on I was a kid in the 70s, right, when movies were pretty edgy.
Yeah.
And my parents did not want me watching those movies. And we had this revival. No, I didn't. I didn't. We had this revival theater near my house, my apartment in New York. And they would show like festivals from like Warner Brothers from the 40s and MGM. So my film education actually was almost like sequential, like started with Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and all those films,
Harold Lloyd,
and that Harold Lloyd, they never showed much of his. Interestingly enough,
he's by far my favorite. He's my favorite silent.
He fell out of it, you know. At the time, he fell out.
He owned all the rights. I think Suzanne Lloyd, his daughter, I think owns the trust in the estate and doesn't like it. They've getting out without,
Yeah, you didn't see his films in theater. You would see, Steamboat Bill Jr. and this and that, but and all the Chaplins. But you would not see Harold Lloyd almost anywhere ever, right? But anyway, and I would, our heroes when we were kids was like Errol Flynn, James Cagney, Bogart, like. That's the stuff I grew up on.
That's awesome.
Clark Gable and
interestingly, and all that stuff. And interestingly enough, it was only when I became a teenager and all that I started to go to revival houses and go, oh, I'm going to watch Taxi Driver now. Like I wasn't allowed to watch that when it came out in 1974. And I did see a couple of the movies that came out in the 70s when they came out, but not many.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of retroactively do my film education, like once I got to be a teenager and into college and all that.
Go backwards, watch Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, stuff like that.
But I mean, obviously, the late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s, like that's the most attractive period of American filmmaking for young men, especially.
Bonnie and Clyde.
All the Scorsese films,
Mean Streets,
films, the Altman films, especially for me, the Altman films, and so that's the great 15 years of American film. But I like select things from all decades.
Same. That's I'll watch a movie.
But I mean, I do think that even though it was my decade as to come into film and all that, that the 80s were kind of lame. Overall, although they still had better than and the 80s were kind of lame, the 90s, which everyone loves as this kind of like, oh, the 90s was the best movies because of the indie explosion and stuff. I don't really think so.
A lot of studio stuff too. A lot of big budget studio stuff.
Also, honestly, like I feel the indies of the 90s, like the kind of great indies of the 90s, are far inferior to the stuff in the 70s and the 60s and stuff like that. Like, you know, like you can't really compare, in my opinion, even the standout 90s movies to like the fucking Godfather and Bonnie and Clyde and the two Peckinpah films, Straw Dogs and Wild Bunch.
Straw Dogs, talking about a hard movie to watch.
Straw Dogs is the great,
holy cow,
greatest. And like, so I just don't think the 90s compare.
Yeah.
But at least they were trying to do something.
Yeah.
And now it's just, it's like the wasteland at the end of the Warrior. It's just, it's like that guy like narrating, you know, the wasteland is
like, it's much fewer and farther between right now.
It's the worst. It is the worst.
And you're right. It seems like streaming would have helped out with distribution, because that's what my understanding has always been one of the toughest part. But no,
nightmare.
Yeah, that's wild. All right, so this next part, Boaz, we like to do I call it the lightning round. It's just 10 questions. You don't. It's not timed. We don't have to go fast. I don't know why I call it a lightning round. It should just be 10 questions.
Because you want to electrocute everybody.
I do. I just want to zap us all. So, what was the first film you ever fell in love with?
The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn.
Yeah, Olivia de Havilland. That's a
Regency Theater.
Basil.
Olivia de Havilland was my biggest crush of all time.
I love her.
Yeah.
And when I saw Errol Flynn as Robin Hood, I was like, "That's who I want to be in life."
100%. Who doesn't want to be Errol Flynn?
Sure. And he always, I mean, that character and what he represented was, till this day, my ideal of like, if you can be like somebody,
be like Errol Flynn,
be like that.
Yeah, like the character he plays in Dodge City, the same thing. Like that was one of the first Errol Flynn movies I saw, and I was like, he's upright, he's moral, he's powerful, he's strong, he's handsome, he's all these things. Like that's who I should be. That I'll just be that now.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, number 2. What's your favorite New York City movie that isn't one of yours?
Well, trust me, there's many that aren't one of mine that are my favorite New York City movie. I wouldn't even put myself in the same breath. I don't know if there's one.
Is there one New York director that you're more?
I mean,
Larry Clark.
There's that's such a great genre.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the great New York DP Owen Roizman, who shot French Connection and The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Like that whole look, like that's the New York look, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the way a New York City movie needs to look. Right. And Owen Roizman got it, right?
But I mean, Doyle screams.
French Connection, Mean Streets, Ralph Bakshi's Heavy Traffic.
Yeah. Which I jotted down that I'm gonna go search out.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna check it out after this.
And Coonskin.
Because I've seen Coonskin and I loved it, and that's what.
Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
Those movies.
But, so you like more the gritty New York, not the
dirty, seedy 1970s.
What other New York is there?
Well,
before Times Square was ruined.
Now, you might as well call it Seattle.
I mean, you're not watching you're not watching the neurotic Woody Allen.
No. I mean, look, I love Manhattan and Annie Hall. No,
great movies,
those aren't the ones that define New York for me.
Exactly. What is a film you wish you had directed or could have directed? Is there one out there that you just wish you could have?
No, I mean, I don't think that way.
No,
I don't think that, and I'm really not avoiding it. I just
that's
I can't put myself in those people's shoes.
Yeah.
You know?
And
I wish I made Avatar just so I had $1 billion and I could make.
At least one of them. Aren't there like 35 of them?
Sure,
there's like 30.
Make Aviva movies for the rest of my life. Not ever having to worry about it again. But
just slip Aviva the disc into the Avatar box.
I tell you what,
know the
I don't
difference.
even have to make it. Just give me the check.
Yeah.
and I'll make movies for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I heard somewhere that when you moved to France early in your Hollywood career, you wrote a novel. Will that novel ever get published?
No, probably not, unless I become really famous or something.
Well, I actually do have a question, speaking of that, because I was going to save it for the end, but I bought and read, you have Jerusalem out, which I read, beautiful book, by the way. These are stories, I just didn't mean to sidetrack us, but these are stories told to you by your dad, right?
Well, it started as stories told to me by my dad, and also as I adapted some of the screenplay he was writing. But that's a result of immense research with every member of my family, a lot of members of the family, and other people who are alive during the period and all that stuff. So its gestation was my conversations with my dad, but it definitely encompassed a lot of research.
It's a beautiful book. It's a piece of time that's fantastic. Would you ever consider making that into a film? I mean,
it was originally a screenplay.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
And it came close with a couple of directors like Spielberg and Michael Mann were interested in it, and it just never got made. And finally, I was like talking to someone from First Second Books, and they were like, "Do you have anything?" And I was like, "How about turning this into a graphic novel?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Okay." And so we turned the screenplay into a graphic novel, but it started out as
that's
a
how
screenplay.
it started.
I say it's beautiful. It's a really
Thank you.
Really great book. I have Marathon. I just haven't read it yet.
And pertinent for today.
I know. I was going to say that. Couldn't be more timely.
Right.
But
is there an actor and actress you'd most like to work with or work with again?
I can't. No. There's nothing that comes to my mind.
Right. So what is more nerve-wracking, a Sundance premiere or your first day on a film set?
For your first day.
First day on the set.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an anxiety in a Sundance premiere, 100%. Absolutely, very anxious, and you suddenly realize, oh shit, the fate of my movie might come down to how this is perceived.
I hope everybody likes it.
But at least it's done.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas that first day on a film set, I will tell you what my most nerve-wracking moments are, though, bizarrely enough.
Yeah.
Is the last half of the last day of shooting.
Oh.
Make sure you have everything.
Because you've been holding like this, like a fist, for like months, and now your fist is starting to release, and all this stuff is flooding into you.
Yeah.
And you only have 2 shots left, and suddenly you're like, but what if I can't get the shot right? What if
I miss the lighting?
This makes no sense. I have 1 shot left, and I'm literally having a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always find the ending is like you can get a nervous breakdown at the end. But filming is the most nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
A lot of pieces.
What one film do you think everyone should see at least once?
What film should everyone see at least once?
Heavy Traffic, right?
Heavy Traffic.
We're talking about.
No, because that's so assaultive that you don't want everyone to see. It's so assaultive. You don't want to subject everybody.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
You don't want to subject everybody to that. I would say I'm gonna go around you and say everyone should watch the entirety of Star Trek, the original series.
Okay. It's a great show. It's a great show.
That's the single best, greatest pop culture artifact of all time. And it also represents the best that humanity has to offer.
Yeah.
And I would recommend anyone between the age of 6 and 10 be exposed to Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and Dr. McCoy.
Yeah.
That is when my dad had me watch all of them.
Yeah. Yes.
I've seen every single one.
Same.
Yep.
So what is your go-to drink when you're writing?
I don't know. Water?
See, for me, it's always coffee. I have to have black coffee, but...
Yeah, no, coffee can be tremendously helpful in focusing, but I also can't do caffeine. So
yeah.
I have tried it, and it's helpful for writing. So God bless if you can stomach caffeine, but I can't quite handle it.
Can't do it. Yeah. And the last question in our not so lightning round: if you weren't making films, what would you be doing?
Literally, it's the only thing I know how to do. I mean, I'd be writing.
You'd be writing.
I'd be writing. I mean, I love writing more than filmmaking even, and I would just be trying to write novels and stories and things like that. But if I couldn't do anything in this particular kind of zone,
right,
I'm completely useless. Like I don't know. I don't know how to change a light bulb. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like it's either this or like on the beach, hopefully.
Right.
Or
riding on the beach. Yeah.
Sipping margaritas and taking a swim.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In that the same interview that I heard about the novel, you said you talk about Lawrence Bender. Did you know Lawrence Bender before he was before he was Tarantino's partner?
Yeah, Lawrence and I were friends for years before. He was one of my first formative friends that I met when I moved to LA, and we became friends. And he was struggling and trying to do this, and I was trying to do that. And he made I put him together with my friend Scott Spiegel, who was Sam Raimi's writing partner on Evil Dead 2. And Scotty was making trying to make a low budget slasher film. They ended up, at the time it was called Night Crew, I think, but they ended up calling it Intruder. And I put him together with Lawrence, and Lawrence produced Intruder.
Did he?
And then Quentin Tarantino was introduced to me by Sheldon. And I was like, me and Sheldon were like, this guy has to meet Scotty, right?
Yeah.
And I was actually moving to France at the time.
Yeah.
And I was giving up, and Quentin and Scotty met and got along like a house on fire. And Scotty actually helped Quentin get one of his first writing jobs. And then Scotty, when Quentin was like about to make Reservoir Dogs for like $30,000 or some low budget, Scotty was like, you got to meet Lawrence, who produced Night Crew with me. And that's how that relationship got formed. And Lawrence convinced Quentin to let him try and raise more money. And that's how that all got rolling.
And that's how it got in front of, is it Harvey Keitel? That's how it got in front of Harvey Keitel, and
I believe through someone that Lawrence
that route.
Yeah.
It's wild how the small world of everything, and essentially, but
in those days it feels like it was small.
Yeah.
I kind of miss the feeling of even if it was competitive in a lot of ways, of camaraderie that seemed to exist, and it feels much more diffuse now, and like there isn't as much of a what I don't know what you'd call it, community or whatever. It feels like there's a lot less of a sense of community, and we definitely, maybe because I'm older now, but when we were younger, that definitely existed at the time. So.
Yeah.
There's always a set of filmmakers, and each generation that's kind of bonding. The Coppola generation,
like Coppola, Lucas, Spielberg. Yeah,
that was a hell of a generation,
right? Yeah, it's
kind of changed.
They're responsible for our fandom. I mean, everything they ever touched growing up was what we watched.
Good or bad, I saw Star Wars when I was really young and fell in love with it. But you know,
oh yeah.
So, Dave, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one question, because I was going to ask you. At the end of Once Again, one of your thank yous is to the guy who opened the gate for you guys. I don't know if you remember, you put that in there. How much of that was, I don't want to say guerrilla filmmaking, but how much of it was just kind of done run and gun style, where you were just kind of making your way through?
A lot of it. I mean, when you're making a movie low budget in New York, so much of it is run and gun. But you do have to lock down some locations. You know, you have to lock down some locations here and there when you can, you know, and all that. And I wrote that, it's semi-facetiously, but not. That guy will never remember. Like, basically, basically in New York, I don't know, maybe everywhere, especially, trying to get someone to just be a human being is so hard.
Sure.
It's so hard. And there was this one shot that I wanted to get of the guy walking by a train as it goes by. It's sort of like before he goes and meets those guys in the skate park or whatever, and all that. And there's this parking lot near Yankee Stadium that there's no cars in, and it's right next to this train, right? And but there's a gate, and like the day that I got in there and I filmed it on my little iPhone, going, this is where I want to shoot that shot. I just walked in, the gate wasn't closed.
It was open.
Next time I went back there to show the locate, like, this is where I want to shoot that, it was closed. There was a chain around it, right? So we figured out, like, who owned that parking lot and all this kind of stuff, and asked them if they could open it. I offered to pay the guy. He was like, no, we're not interested. And I'm like, there's no cars in it. We're shooting on the Saturday morning. There's no cars in it. I'll pay for a guy to come open it, and we'll pay like this and that. Not interested. Right? And literally the day that we were shooting the scene, and we were going to shoot it outside the fence, right? Like a much less good shot. I was heartbroken, right? Heartbroken. While we're setting up that shot, one of the actors just goes, Boaz, and like kind of points. And I look behind myself, and there's this this Chinese dude, middle-aged Chinese dude, like opening the lock to put his car in there or something. And I'm like, fuck. And I like run over to the guy, and I'm like, hey, do you think you could would you be chill, like, to let us in while, da-da-da? He didn't speak even English very well, right? And whatever. And he was like, okay, yeah, sure. And we go in there. He had 15 minutes. We did the shot a few times, right? I go over to, and I was like, okay, we're done, like, because the guy had to leave, right? Like I'm like, okay, thanks. And I like take out like, a couple of $100 bills or whatever to give the guy. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. What? Right? Like he just kind of enjoyed watching us do the shot or whatever. And I was like, why the fuck is it so hard to just be a nice fucking dude?
Yeah.
Like, and that guy just basically made my day and made one of the cooler shots in the movie possible.
Yeah.
Just by being like, go ahead, 15 minutes, why not? Yeah. And I was just like, to me, that thank you was just a little kind of note out there into
humanity.
Karmic note of like
to good humanity.
Thank you, people who just are nice people for no reason other than being a nice person.
Nice to
fascinating. Yeah, that's an amazing story. I'm glad I know that one now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
All right, y'all. Well, it's so nice to have to share and to talk to you guys.
Boaz, are you on social media or anything?
I mean, I have an Instagram that I never go on.
Don't use?
Once in a blue moon, when I make a movie, I'll put a few posts on it. So I do have my Instagram, but I don't really go on social media.
No, that's all good.
Everybody should watch Aviva. It's on Tubi.
Thank you.
I recommend buying the DVD. It's an amazing movie.
Tubi,
and then once again, for the first time, is on
Tubi.
Amazon.
It's amazing that Tubi put it out there, and I love that it's there and it's up for people to watch. But the commercials on Tubi do affect the emotional flow of the movie. So if you have the means, buy it. It's just
anybody who listens, like our Mel, my wife Mel, and Amy. It's literally now one of her favorite movies. So. And
if not, watch it on Tubi.
Yeah, well, absolutely. If you have the means, please pick it up. If not, at least give it a watch on Tubi. And hopefully, once again, we'll get a streaming. Otherwise, go find it. I bought it on Amazon streaming, so it's there for you as well.
At Jerusalem Marathon, all those books are out there
Jerusalem Marathon, the books, pick those up.
Just a plethora of stuff out there for
all kinds of stuff. And then we are the Couch Critics. You can find us. We're a Real Talk podcast. Just find Real Talk on all of the socials, wherever you look and wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you leave us a review, a rating. Dave and I have low self-esteem, so validate us.
We need some validation. Somebody validate us.
But that being said, we are the Couch Critics, the place where two grown men talk passionately
about things that don't matter
at all
to anybody.
And a huge thank you again to Boaz. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having